The invisible weight. You just got home from a social gathering. Everyone seemed to have a great time. You laughed, you talked, you connected. But now, as you close the door behind you, something unexpected happens. Instead of feeling energized or happy, you feel completely drained. Like someone pulled the plug on your battery. Your body feels heavy. Your mind is foggy. All you want to do is collapse on the couch and be alone. And here's the strangest part, you can't quite explain why. The event wasn't bad. The people were nice. So why do you feel like you just ran a marathon? If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Millions of people experience this exact phenomenon after social interactions. But here's what most people don't realize, the exhaustion you feel isn't really about the socializing itself. It's about something happening inside your mind while you're socializing. A specific pattern of thinking that turns every conversation into an energy-draining performance. Today, we're going to uncover exactly what that thinking pattern is, why it affects some people more than others, and most importantly, what you can do about it. The performance mindset. Let's start by understanding what's actually happening in your mind during social interactions. When you walk into a room full of people, your brain immediately switches into what psychologists call performance mode. But this isn't the healthy kind of performance where you're simply being yourself. This is something different. Think about the last time you were at a social event. While you were talking to someone, part of your mind was probably doing something else entirely. It was monitoring, analyzing, judging. Not the other person, but yourself. Did that joke land? Why did I say that? Do I sound interesting? Am I talking too much or too little? Is my body language weird? Are they bored? Did I just repeat myself? This is the exhausting part. While you're having a conversation on the surface, there's a second conversation happening inside your head. And that internal dialogue is relentless. It's like having a harsh critic sitting on your shoulder, providing live commentary on everything you say and do. This is what we call the performance mindset. You're not just socializing. You're constantly evaluating your performance as a socializer. And that evaluation requires enormous mental energy. Research in cognitive psychology shows that this kind of self-monitoring activates multiple brain regions simultaneously. You're processing the actual conversation, managing your emotional responses, and running a constant self-assessment. It's like trying to drive a car while also analyzing your driving technique in real time. Exhausting, right? The comparison trap. But the performance mindset doesn't exist in isolation. It's usually connected to another draining thought pattern, constant social comparison. When you're in that room, your mind isn't just monitoring yourself. It's also measuring yourself against everyone else. You notice how easily that person tells stories. How relaxed that other person seems. How naturally charismatic someone else appears to be. And with each observation, there's often an implicit judgment, they're better at this than I am. This comparison happens so quickly and automatically that you might not even notice it consciously. But your subconscious is keeping score. And usually, in this scorekeeping, you're coming up short. The interesting thing about social comparison is that it works both ways. Sometimes you might catch yourself thinking you're more awkward than others. Other times, you might feel like you need to prove you're just as interesting, just as funny, just as worthy of being there. Either way, you're burning mental fuel. Because comparison requires you to simultaneously hold two images in your mind, the idealized version of how others are doing, and your perceived version of how you're doing. Your brain is constantly running this comparison algorithm in the background, and it's draining your battery without you even realizing it. Psychologists call this upward social comparison, and studies have shown it's directly linked to increased anxiety and emotional exhaustion in social settings. The more you compare, the more tired you become. The approval addiction. Now let's dig deeper. Because underneath the performance mindset and the comparison trap, there's often something even more fundamental, an unconscious need for constant approval. When you're in a social situation, are you truly present with the people around you? Or are you subtly scanning for signs of approval? A smile. A laugh. An engaged expression. Agreement. Validation. If you're honest with yourself, you might realize that part of your exhaustion comes from this constant approval seeking. Every interaction becomes a mini-test. Do they like me? Do they find me interesting? Am I making a good impression? This isn't about being insecure in an obvious way. Many people who experience social exhaustion are actually quite confident in other areas of their lives. But in social settings, something shifts. There's this underlying belief that you need to earn your place in the conversation. That you need to prove your worth through your words and actions. The problem with approval addiction is that it's never satisfied. You can get 10 positive signals and 1 neutral or negative one, and your brain will fixate on that one. Because when your sense of okayness depends on external validation, you're essentially giving other people control over your energy levels. And that's exhausting. Because you can't control how others respond to you. You can't make everyone like you or approve of you. So you're constantly chasing something that's ultimately outside your control. The authenticity cost. Here's where things get really interesting. All of this, the performance mindset, the comparison, the approval seeking, leads to what might be the most draining aspect of all, the loss of authenticity. When you're constantly monitoring and adjusting yourself, you're not really being yourself. You're being a version of yourself that you think will be acceptable. Safe. Likeable. You edit your thoughts before speaking. You laugh a little louder at jokes than you naturally would. You share opinions you think others want to hear. You suppress parts of your personality that might be too much or too weird. You adjust your energy level to match the room. In psychology, this is called impression management, and while everyone does it to some degree, some people take it to an extreme. The gap between who you really are and who you're presenting becomes so wide that maintaining that facade requires constant effort. It's like wearing a mask that doesn't quite fit. You have to hold it in place with your hands, constantly adjusting it to make sure it doesn't slip. And that physical tension translates into mental exhaustion. The irony is that this self-editing is often unnecessary. Research shows that people who express their authentic selves in social situations are generally more liked and respected, not less. But when you're caught in the performance mindset, you can't see that. You genuinely believe that the real you isn't good enough, so you present an edited version instead. And editing yourself in real time, for hours on end, is absolutely exhausting. The introvert myth. At this point, you might be thinking, wait, isn't this just what it means to be an introvert? Don't introverts naturally get drained by socializing? This is one of the biggest misconceptions about social exhaustion. Yes, introversion and extroversion are real personality traits. Introverts do tend to need more alone time to recharge. But that's not the same thing as what we've been describing. True introversion is about where you get your energy, not about whether socializing is exhausting. Many introverts enjoy socializing deeply, they just need downtime afterward to process and recharge. Their exhaustion is natural and expected, like a muscle getting tired after exercise. But what we've been talking about is different. This is exhaustion that comes from psychological tension, not from natural temperament. It's the difference between feeling tired after a good workout and feeling tired because you've been holding your body in an unnatural position for hours. You can be an extrovert and still experience this draining pattern if you're caught in the performance mindset. You can be an introvert and not experience it if you've learned to be authentic and present in social situations. The key distinction is this: natural introversion feels like gentle tiredness after meaningful connection. Performance-based exhaustion feels like being wrung out, depleted, sometimes even anxious or depressed. If you're feeling the latter, it's not about your personality type. It's about the thinking patterns we've been exploring. And that's actually good news, because unlike your basic temperament, thinking patterns can be changed. The shift toward presence. So how do you actually change these patterns? How do you move from exhausting performance to energizing presence? The answer starts with one fundamental shift, moving your attention from inward monitoring to outward curiosity. Instead of constantly checking, "How am I doing?" start asking, "What's interesting about this person?" Instead of, "What should I say next?" try, "What are they actually trying to communicate?" Instead of, "Do they like me?" explore, "What's their experience like right now?" This might sound simple, but it's profound. When you genuinely focus on the other person, not as an audience to impress, but as a human being to understand, something magical happens. The performance mindset starts to dissolve. Why? Because your brain can't fully do both at the same time. It can't deeply listen to someone while also running constant self-evaluation. So when you commit to genuine curiosity, you automatically reduce the mental load of self-monitoring. This is what psychologists call being present. It's not about forcing yourself to be more outgoing or charismatic. It's about showing up as you actually are, right now, and giving your attention to what's actually happening, rather than to your internal commentary about what's happening. At first, this might feel uncomfortable. The urge to monitor and perform is strong. But with practice, you'll notice something: conversations become easier, more natural, and significantly less draining. Reclaiming your energy. Let's bring this all together. If you feel drained after socializing, it's probably not because you're broken or fundamentally antisocial. It's because you've developed a specific way of thinking in social situations, a performance mindset driven by comparison and approval seeking, leading to exhausting self-editing. The good news is that this isn't permanent. You can learn to socialize in a way that feels natural and energizing, or at least not completely draining. Start by noticing when you slip into performance mode. Catch yourself in the act of self-monitoring or comparing. When you notice it, gently redirect your attention outward. Focus on genuine curiosity about the person in front of you. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. To say something awkward. To not always have the perfect response. To be quiet when you don't have anything to say. To show up as you actually are, even if that feels vulnerable. And here's something important: changing these patterns doesn't mean you'll suddenly become someone who loves constant socializing. You might still prefer smaller gatherings. You might still need alone time. And that's perfectly fine. The goal isn't to transform yourself into an extroverted social butterfly. The goal is to make socializing less exhausting when you do it. To shift from performance to presence. From comparison to curiosity. From approval seeking to authenticity. Because when you do that, something beautiful happens. Social interactions stop being a test you need to pass and start being what they were always meant to be: genuine human connection. And that kind of connection, it doesn't drain you. It fills you up. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your last social interaction. Can you identify any of these thinking patterns? The performance mindset. The comparison trap. The approval seeking. Awareness is the first step toward change. And you've just taken it. If you found this valuable, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you want more insights on psychology, mindset, and personal growth, subscribe to the channel. Remember, you don't need to perform. You just need to be present. See you in the next video.